Ready to go deep on Balancer Protocol. Let's do it. We're dissecting this great interview with Fernando Martinelli, one of the co-founders from the Epicenter Podcast. It's going to be fascinating. You ready to really get what Balancer's doing and how it's kind of pushing the limits of AMMs?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how their journey is so intertwined with the evolution of AMMs themselves. Like starting from this simple yet groundbreaking idea of like, what if AMMs could function like a diversified portfolio, moving beyond those basic 50-50 token pairs?
Yeah, that was such a light bulb moment for Fernando back in 2018.
Yeah.
He saw the potential for AMMs to be like index funds or ETFs.
Absolutely.
And that led to Balancer V1 launching in 2020. But I think one of the coolest things is how Balancer went from being just for end users to being a platform for developers.
Exactly. Yeah, with V2 and V3, they've essentially made it so anyone can build on top of Balancer and make their own innovative AMMs.
It's like a launch pad for AMMs.
Exactly.
That's so cool. But before we get too far into that, can we take a step back? Because early AMMs were kind of a necessity.
Yeah.
They were born out of the limitations of on-chain order book exchanges.
Absolutely. Early on-chain order books were way too complex and expensive and just not practical at all.
Yeah.
So AMMs came in as a simpler solution, but they came with their own set of problems.
Oh, yeah. I remember those Wild West days of impermanent loss.
Oh, yeah.
And getting just totally wrecked by bots exploiting MEV. It really did feel like the financial dark forest, as they called it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But you know what? All those challenges that we had, they spurred on some amazing innovation.
For sure.
Like Curve introduced stable swaps, which made trading pegged assets way more efficient.
Yeah.
And then came Uniswap V3, which was a total game changer with concentrated liquidity.
Huge.
But it definitely had its own trade-offs.
Yeah. Uniswap V3 definitely shook things up. But Balancer seems to be carving its own path, focusing on this idea of fungible liquidity,
Right.
which is like the opposite of Uniswap V3's non-fungible approach.
Yeah.
So help me understand this. Why should I, as just a regular person, care about fungible liquidity?
Well, fungible liquidity is super important for passive liquidity providers
Okay.
because it's a safeguard against those sophisticated players who use tactics like just-in-time liquidity to basically scoop up a huge share of the trading fees.
So it's about making sure there's a level playing field.
Exactly. A level playing field for everyone providing liquidity to the pool.
Gotcha. Now, you might think that prioritizing fungible liquidity means sacrificing capital efficiency,
Right.
especially compared to something like concentrated liquidity. But Balancer has found these really cool ways to actually achieve both. So tell me about those innovations.
So one example is Gyroscope. They built on top of Balancer using something called elliptical curve pools.
Elliptical curve pool.
Yeah, so imagine these pools with a unique shape that lets them concentrate liquidity where it's needed most. But the key here is they still maintain the fungibility of the liquidity provided.
Okay, that sounds complex. So break it down for me. How does this elliptical curve approach actually work?
Okay, so basically these elliptical curves let Gyroscope create pools that kind of mimic the effects of concentrated liquidity, but within Balancer's framework of fungible liquidity.
Gotcha.
So let's say you have a pool with two stable coins like DAI and USDC.
Right.
In a traditional AMM, the liquidity would be spread out evenly across the entire price range.
Okay.
But with an elliptical curve pool, the liquidity is concentrated around that $1 peg,
Makes sense.
which is where most of the trading happens anyway.
Right. So instead of spreading the liquidity super thin across every possible price,
Yeah.
it's all bunched up where it's most likely to be used.
Exactly.
But this still works within Balance's system where everyone's liquidity is treated the same.
Exactly. It's a really clever solution that combines the best of both worlds.
I like it.
Concentrated liquidity and fungible liquidity.
Yeah.
So passive liquidity providers can have higher capital efficiency without being taken advantage of by these sophisticated players.
That's really cool. That's a really smart way to address that challenge. It seems like Balancer's all about finding these elegant solutions.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's dive into Balancer V3.
Okay.
I'm curious what makes it stand out.
So V3 is really a big shift towards becoming that developer-centric platform we talked about.
Okay.
They've made it way easier to build your own AMMs on top of Balancer AIRs. Developers can now just focus on the core logic of their AMM, the mathematical invariant.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that mathematical invariant idea a little bit?
Sure.
It sounds pretty technical.
Yeah, so think of the invariant as like a set of rules
Okay.
that governs how the prices of assets in a pool relate to each other.
Okay.
So for example, in a basic constant product, AMM, like the original Uniswap, the invariant makes sure that the product of the quantities of the two assets always stays the same.
Right.
So developers can now define their own custom invariants
Got it.
to create some unique AMM behaviors.
Interesting. So V3 gives developers the tools to create all sorts of specialized AMMs.
Yeah.
What kind of innovation are we seeing come out of this?
So one exciting area is boosted pools.
Boosted pools.
Okay. These pools let liquidity providers earn yield on 100% of their deposited assets.
Wait, so I can earn yield on all of my liquidity?
Yes.
That sounds almost too good to be true. How do they pull that off?
Well, the trick is to make swaps happen with the underlying tokens,
Okay.
say DAI and USDC.
Right.
While at the same time, your liquidity is earning yield in their wrapped lending versions, like ADAI and AUSDC.
Okay.
So balancer solution, buffers.
Buffers. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so think of buffers as like mini instances of a lending protocol.
Okay.
Like AVL built right into the balancer vault.
Got it.
So let's say you deposit DAI into a boosted pool.
Mm-hmm.
That DAI goes into the DAI buffer.
Okay.
When someone wants to swap DAI for USDC, the balancer vault smartly uses a portion of its ADI holdings in the ADI USDC lending pool to get you that USDC.
So the swap is happening behind the scenes using those yield-bearing versions of the assets.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And for you as a liquidity provider, you don't have to manage anything.
Awesome.
And because these buffers are operating within the balancer vault, the gas costs are super low.
That's really important. Gas fees can be such a pain.
Absolutely.
Speaking of gas fees, wouldn't this be less of a concern on layer 2s where transactions are supposed to be way cheaper?
That's what a lot of people think,
Right.
but it's not always the case.
Really?
While layer 2 fees are low right now, they're not immune to supply and demand.
True.
So as more activity moves to layer 2s and block space gets scarce, those fees will probably go up.
So optimizing for gas efficiency is still crucial.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even in the layer 2 world.
Definitely.
It seems like Balancer is ahead of the curve on that.
For sure. And their focus on efficiency goes beyond just gas.
Yeah.
It also extends to things like mitigating the impact of MEV.
We've talked about MEV a few times now.
Right.
It's clearly a big issue for AMMs. Can you remind me what MEV is and why it's such a problem?
Okay, so MEV stands for maximal extractable value. And it basically refers to the prompt that can be extracted by manipulating the order of transactions in a blockchain.
Okay.
So picture this. A bot sees your big swap order in the mempool. It can then front-run your transaction, driving up the price and forcing you to buy at a worse rate. And then the bot profits from that price difference.
It's like insider trading, but for DeFi.
Exactly. MEV can really hurt regular users and make the market inefficient.
That's no good. So how is Balancer tackling this?
They're addressing it in a few different ways, including something called hooks.
Hooks? Like Captain Hook?
Not quite.
Okay.
Imbalancer hooks are these modular pieces of code that can be added to AMMs to introduce new functionalities without needing developers to rewrite the entire pool logic.
So they're like add-ons or plugins.
Exactly.
Got it. Give me an example of how a hook can be used to fight MEV.
Okay, so Balancer has a priority fee hook that specifically targets MEV on layer 2s.
A priority fee hook.
Yeah, it works by adjusting swap fees based on the priority fees paid by transactions.
I'm a little lost. What are priority fees and why are they important for MEV?
So priority fees are basically tips
Okay.
paid to miners to prioritize including your transaction in the next block.
Got it.
MEV bots often use high priority fees to make sure their malicious transactions go through first.
Ah.
The priority fee hook sees this happening and dynamically increases the swap fee for those transactions.
So if a bot wants to jump the line with a high priority fee, they get hit with a higher swap fee, making their MEV extraction less profitable.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever.
It's a good way to discourage MEV exploiting behavior and protect regular users.
I like it. What other hooks are there?
Another example is the stable surge hook.
Okay.
This one protects stablecoin pools from depicking events.
Interesting.
So if a stablecoin like DAI starts to drift away from its peg to the US dollar, this hook automatically adjusts fees to incentivize trades that help bring the price back to $1.
So it's like an automatic stabilizer.
Yeah.
Encouraging trades that restore balance to the pool. I'm seeing how these hooks can make AMMs more resilient and user-friendly.
Yeah, they're a powerful tool for creating more robust and adaptable AMMs.
For sure. But Balancer isn't just tackling MEV alone. They've also partnered with CowSwap to create the CowAM.
Yeah.
Tell me about that collaboration. What's unique about CowSwap's approach to MEV mitigation?
So CowSwap uses a network of solvers.
Okay.
who compete to give traders the best prices for their swaps.
Got it.
This competition among solvers really reduces the opportunity for MEV extraction.
So instead of interacting directly with an AMM, I would go to CalSwap, and their solvers would find me the most favorable trade across different AMMs.
Exactly.
That's cool. And what's really innovative about the CalMM is that it treats the AMM itself as a user within the CalSwap network.
Right.
So the AMM gets the same MEV protection as any other trader.
Exactly. This makes sure that the AMM isn't subject to unfair price manipulation.
That's interesting. And what's been the result of that?
Well, early data shows that even smaller CalM pools are seeing much higher APRs for liquidity providers.
Wow. So by minimizing MEV, liquidity providers on CalMM get to keep more of the profits? That sounds promising. But where does Balancer see all of this innovation heading?
Right.
What's their long-term vision for the future of AMMs?
Balancers is positioning itself as a platform for AMM innovation.
Okay.
Not just a specific AMM.
Right.
They're really demonstrating this platform approach through partnerships like CalSwap Quantum M and Gyroscope,
Yeah.
alongside their own in-house pool designs.
It's like they're building the infrastructure for the next generation of AMMs.
That's
really cool. What are some of the areas they're most excited about?
One area Fernando's really passionate about is the revival of on-chain index funds and ETFs.
Oh, that's interesting. Index funds are huge in traditional finance, but they haven't really taken off in DeFi. Why is that?
MEV has been a big roadblock.
Makes sense.
Index funds, by their nature, require predictable and transparent execution. MEV bots can exploit the predictable trading patterns of index fund rebalancing.
Yeah, I see.
Making them inefficient and less attractive in DeFi.
So how can Balancer help with this?
Well, as MEV mitigation tools like CalM and priority fee hooks get better and more widespread, on-chain index funds become a way more viable and attractive option.
Right.
And Balancer, with its focus on fungible liquidity and developer-friendly tools, is really well positioned to be at the forefront of this resurgence.
It's exciting to think about.
Yeah.
Imagine a future where we can easily invest in these diversified, passively managed portfolios of tokens
Right.
right on the blockchain. It feels like we're on the edge of a new era for on-chain investing.
Definitely.
But with all these advancements happening across different blockchains and layer twos,
Right.
how does Balancer navigate this increasingly fragmented landscape?
Fernando's philosophy is to focus on Balancer's core strengths, building a robust developer-friendly platform, and supporting partners who want to bring Balancer to the chains of their choice.
So rather than trying to be everywhere at once,
Right.
they're empowering others to expand Balancer's reach.
Exactly. It's a strategic approach that lets them keep a high level of quality and focus on what they do best.
That makes a lot of sense. It seems like Balancer is playing the long game.
Yeah.
Building a solid foundation for sustainable growth and innovation in the AMM space. We've covered so much here.
Yeah.
Fungible liquidity and elliptical curve pools,
Yeah.
to boosted pools and MEV mitigation hooks. It's clear that Balancer is way more than just another AMM.
Absolutely. It's an entire ecosystem paving the way for AMMs to move beyond just simple token swaps.
It's wild to see how far we've come from those early days. It sounds like Balancer is at the center of this evolution, pushing the limits of what's possible with AMMs.
Yeah, and it's not just about the tech either. Balancer has built a really vibrant community of developers, users, and innovators.
I love that.
They're always exploring new ideas and working together to shape the future of DeFi.
That's awesome. It reminds us that DeFi is more than just code. It's about building a community around shared goals and values. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing from Fernando's interview that really stuck with me.
Okay.
He said he believes AMMs have a bright future even if on-chain order books become more efficient and widely adopted.
Interesting.
What do you think about that?
That's a great question. While order books have their advantages, I think AMMs offer some unique benefits that will keep them relevant in the long run.
Like what?
Their simplicity, accessibility, and ability to provide constant liquidity are big pluses.
Yeah.
And as we've seen with Balancer, the potential for innovation within the AMM space is huge.
Totally. I feel like AMMs are constantly evolving, finding new ways to address challenges and improve the user experience.
Exactly. And that adaptability is key in a space as dynamic and ever-changing as DeFi.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. If you had to boil down the essence of Balancer into a few key takeaways for our listeners, what would they be?
I'd say Balancer is all about democratizing access to liquidity and giving anyone the power to participate in and shape the future of AMMs.
I like that.
Their commitment to fungible liquidity ensures a fair and level playing field for everyone, while their developer-centric approach opens up a ton of possibilities for innovation.
That's a great way to put it. It's been an awesome journey exploring the depths of Balancer.
It has.
We've uncovered some really valuable insights about their unique way of doing AMMs, their dedication to solving these critical challenges like MEV.
For sure.
And their ambitious vision for the future of DeFi.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad we got to dive into this with you.
Me too. It's been fun.
Before we go, I have one final thought to leave our listeners with.
Okay.
Fernando believes AMMs are here to stay even as on-chain order books evolve. What kind of AMM innovations are you most excited about? What does the future hold for this fascinating corner of DeFi?
That's a great question to think about. I think we'll keep seeing amazing innovation in areas like MEV mitigation, cross-chain interoperability, and maybe even the integration of more complex financial instruments into AMM designs.
Wow.
The possibilities are endless, and I'm super excited to see what the future holds.
I'm right there with you. It's a really exciting time to be in DeFi. And if you want to stay on top of the latest in AMM innovation, be sure to check out Balancer's Discord forum and Twitter.
Yes, definitely.
They've got an awesome community where you can learn, share, and connect with other DeFi enthusiasts.
There's always something new to discover in the world of Balancer.
Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Balancer Protocol.
It was a good one.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, happy exploring.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
That's a really clever way to address that challenge.
It
seems like Balancer's all about finding these elegant solutions. Speaking of which, let's dive into Balancer V3. I'm curious what makes it stand out.
Well, V3 is a big step towards becoming that developer-centric platform we talked about. They made it so much easier for developers to build custom AMMs on top of Balancer. Now they can just focus on the core logic of their AMM, the mathematical invariant, and Balancer handles the rest.
Okay, hold on. Can you explain that mathematical invariant idea a bit more for me? It sounds kind of technical.
Sure, think of the invariant like a set of rules that governs how the prices of assets in a pool relate to each other. Like, for example, in a basic constant product, AM, like the original Uniswap, the invariant ensures that the product of the quantities of the two assets always stays the same.
Right.
Developers can now define their own custom invariants to create unique AMM behaviors.
Interesting. So V3 gives developers the tools to create all sorts of specialized AMMs. What kind of innovation has this sparked? What are some examples of cool things being built on Balancer V3?
One exciting area is the development of boosted pools.
Boosted pools.
These pools let liquidity providers earn yield on 100% of their deposited assets. It solves a common challenge in DeFi.
Earning yield on all of my liquidity. That sounds almost too good to be true. How do they pull that off?
The challenge is making swaps happen with the underlying tokens like DAI and USDC, while simultaneously allowing your liquidity to earn yield in their wrapped lending versions like ADAI and a USDC balancer solution.
Buffers.
Buffers. Okay, now I'm intrigued.
Think of buffers as mini instances of a lending protocol like OAuth built right into the Balancer vault. So let's say you deposit DAI into a boosted pool. That DAI goes into the DAI buffer. When someone wants to swap DAI for USDC, the Balancer vault uses a portion of its ADI holdings in the ADAI USDC lending pool to get you that USDC.
So the swap happens in the background using those yield-bearing versions of the assets. That's pretty slick. But how does this affect the user experience?
It's seamless. You as a liquidity provider don't have to worry about manually managing anything. And because these buffers operate within the Balancer vault, the gas costs are minimized. I'm starting to see why this is a big deal. Gas fees can be such a pain in DeFi. Speaking of gas fees, wouldn't this be less of a concern on Layer 2s where transactions are supposed to be much cheaper?
That's a common assumption, but it's not always the case.
Right.
While Layer 2 fees are currently low, they're not immune to the forces of supply and demand. As more activity moves to Layer 2s and block space becomes scarce, those fees will likely rise.
So optimizing for gas efficiency is still crucial even in the Layer 2 world. Balancer seems to be ahead of the curve on this.
Absolutely. And their focus on efficiency extends to other areas, like mitigating the impact of MEV.
We've touched on MEV a few times now. It's clearly a major issue in the AMM space. Can you remind me what MEV is and why it's such a problem?
MEV stands for maximal extractable value, and it basically refers to the profit that can be extracted by manipulating the order of transactions in a blockchain. Imagine a bot noticing your large swap order in the mempool. It could front-run your transaction, driving up the price and forcing you to buy at a less favorable rate. The bot then profits from this price difference.
That doesn't sound fair at all. It's like insider trading, but in the world of DeFi.
Exactly. MEV can really hurt regular users and create inefficiencies in the market. Balancers is actively addressing this through various features, including something called hooks.
Hooks, like what Captain Hook uses.
Not quite. In Balancer, hooks are modular pieces of code that can be added to AMMs to introduce new functionalities without requiring developers to rewrite the entire pool logic.
Ah, so like add-ons or plugins. I'm starting to get the picture. Give me an example of how a hook can be used to combat MEV.
Sure, Balancer has a priority fee hook that specifically targets MEV on layer 2s. It works by adjusting swap fees based on the priority fees paid by transactions.
I'm a little lost. What are priority fees and why are they important in the context of MEV?
Priority fees are essentially tips paid to miners to prioritize including your transaction in the next block. MEV bots often use high priority fees to ensure their malicious transactions are processed ahead of others. The priority fee hook detects this behavior and dynamically increases the swap fee for those transactions.
So if a bot wants to jump the line with a high priority fee, they'll get hit with a higher swap fee, making their MEV extraction less profitable. That's pretty smart.
It's a clever way to disincentivize MEV exploiting behavior and protect regular users. Another example is the Stable Surge hook, designed to protect stablecoin pools from depegging events. If a stablecoin like DAI starts to deviate from its peg to the US dollar, this hook automatically adjusts fees to incentivize trades that help bring the price back to $1.
It's like an automatic stabilizer, encouraging trades that restore balance to the pool. That's really impressive. I'm seeing how these hooks can make AMMs more resilient and user-friendly.
They're a powerful tool for creating more robust and adaptable AMMs. But Balancer isn't just tackling MEV on their own. They've also partnered with CowSwap to create something called the CowM.
CowMM. Tell me more about that collaboration. What's unique about CowSwap's approach to MEV mitigation?
CowSwap uses a network of solvers who compete to provide traders with the best possible prices for their swaps. This competition among solvers significantly reduces the opportunity for MEV extraction.
So instead of interacting directly with an AMM, I'd go to CowSwap, and their solvers would find me the most favorable trade across different AMMs.
Precisely. And what's really innovative about the CowMM is that it treats the AMM itself as a user within the CowSwap network.
That's interesting. So the AMM gets the same MEV protection as any other trader.
Exactly. This ensures that the AMM itself isn't subject to unfair price manipulation. Early data suggests that even smaller CowMM pools are experiencing significantly higher APRs for liquidity providers compared to traditional AMMs.
So by minimizing MEV, liquidity providers on CowMM get to keep more of the profits. That sounds promising. But where does Balancer see all of this innovation heading? What's their long-term vision for the future of AMMs?
Balancer is positioning itself as a platform for AMM innovation rather than just a specific AMM. They're demonstrating the potential of this platform approach through partnerships like CowSwap, QuantumM, and Gyroscope, alongside their own in-house pool designs.
It's like they're building the infrastructure for the next generation of AMMs. What are some of the areas they're most excited about?
One area Fernando is particularly passionate about is the revival of on-chain index funds and ETFs.
That's an interesting thought. Index funds are incredibly popular in traditional finance, but they haven't really taken off in DeFi. Why is that?
MEV has been a major obstacle. Index funds, by their nature, require predictable, transparent execution. MEV bots can exploit the predictable trading patterns of index fund rebalancing, making them inefficient and less attractive in a DeFi environment.
I see. So how can Balancer help overcome this challenge?
As MEV mitigation tools like CowMM and priority fee hooks mature and become more widespread, on-chain index funds become a much more viable and attractive option. Balancer, with its focus on fungible liquidity and developer-friendly tools, is well-positioned to be at the forefront of this resurgence.
That's exciting. Imagine a future where we can easily invest in diversified, passively managed portfolios of tokens right on the blockchain. It feels like we're on the cusp of a new era for on-chain investing. But with all of these advancements happening across different blockchains and layer 2s, how does Balancer navigate this increasingly fragmented landscape?
Fernando's philosophy is to focus on Balancer's core strengths, building a robust, developer-friendly platform, and supporting partners who want to bring Balancer to the chains of their choice.
So rather than trying to be everywhere at once, they're empowering others to expand Balancer's reach.
Exactly. It's a strategic approach that allows them to maintain a high level of quality and focus on their core offering.
That makes a lot of sense. It seems like Balancer is playing the long game, building a solid foundation for sustainable growth and innovation in the AMM space. We've covered so much ground here, from fungible liquidity and elliptical curve pools to boosted pools and MEV mitigation hooks. It's clear that Balancer is much more than just another AMM.
Yeah, they're building an entire ecosystem, paving the way for AMMs to evolve beyond just basic token swaps.
It's amazing to see how far AMMs have come from those early days. It sounds like Balancer is right at the heart of this evolution, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the tech balancers created this really vibrant community of developers, users, and innovators. They're constantly coming up with new ideas and collaborating to shape the future of DeFi.
I love that. It's a good reminder that DeFi is more than just code. It's about building a community with shared goals and values. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing that Fernando said in his interview that really stuck with me.
Okay.
He believes AMMs have a bright future, even if on-chain order books get more efficient and more widely used. What are your thoughts on that?
That's an interesting question. Order books definitely have their advantages, but I think AMMs have some unique benefits that will make sure they're still relevant in the future.
Okay, like what?
Things like their simplicity, their accessibility, and their ability to always provide liquidity. Those are big pluses.
Right.
And as we've seen with Balancer, there's just so much potential for innovation within the AMM space.
I agree. It feels like AMMs are always changing, finding new ways to solve problems and improve the user experience.
Exactly. And that adaptability is so important in DeFi because it's such a dynamic and constantly changing space.
Okay, so let's sum it all up. If you had to boil down what makes Balancer special into a few key takeaways for our listeners, what would they be?
Well, I'd say Balancer is all about making liquidity accessible to everyone and giving anyone the power to participate in and shape the future of AMMs.
I like that.
They're really committed to fungible liquidity, which means that there's a fair and level playing field for everyone providing liquidity.
Right.
And their developer-centric approach opens up a ton of possibilities for innovation.
That's a great way to put it. This has been a really cool journey exploring all the ins and outs of Balancer.
It has.
We've learned so much about their unique approach to AMMs,
Yeah.
their dedication to tackling important challenges like MEV, and their ambitious vision for what DeFi can become.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we got to dive into all of this with you.
Me too. It was fun.
Before we say goodbye, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought to ponder. Fernando thinks AMMs are here to stay, even as on-chain order books continue to improve. What AMM innovations are you most excited about? What do you think the future holds for this part of DeFi?
That's a really great question to think about. I think we'll continue to see really amazing innovation in areas like making MEV less of a problem, making blockchains work better together, and maybe even integrating more complex financial instruments into AMM designs.
Wow.
The possibilities are pretty much endless. I'm super excited to see what happens next.
I'm with you. It's such an exciting time to be involved in DeFi. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest in AMM innovation, I highly recommend checking out Balancer's Discord, their forum, and their Twitter.
Definitely. They have a really great community where you can learn, share ideas, and connect with other people who are passionate about DeFi.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Balancer Protocol. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy exploring.
See ya!